What is the most must-watch NFL game for each and every NFL team this season? What's going on, football fans? It's Mitch here to give you all 32 NFL teams the most entertaining, interesting matchup of the 2024 NFL schedule. Going through each team's schedule and picking out that one game that you have to watch of each and every team. If that sounds good, don't forget to spike the like button. Thank you, by the way, for the 100 likes on the previous schedule video. My prediction for every NFL game, that video will be out shortly. If you want more scheduled content just like this, let's get another 100 likes, and I'll bring my favorite game for each week of the 2024 NFL schedule. Get in the comments and let me know the game that you're most looking forward to for your favorite team. What I tried to do in this video is put myself in the chair of a fan of each team and try to determine which game would I most be looking forward to. So this is from the fan perspective of each team and what I find most interesting about each team. Let's kick it off, and we're going to go by division because I think it works out better for this video if we go by division. We're going to start the AFC East, the Buffalo Bills. The Buffalo Bills, most compelling game of 2024. If I'm a Bills fan, I think there's one obvious answer, and that is, of course, the Kansas City Chiefs in Week 11. The Buffalo Bills, they have this thing going on where they beat the Chiefs in the regular season, and then they find the most devastating form or fashion to get their hearts broken come playoffs. But this year, you play them in Buffalo, the Mafia, it's going to be lit. Everyone's going to be watching the game. It's the two best quarterbacks in pro football right now, Josh Allen taking on Patrick Mahomes. It's a little bit of a new look Buffalo Bills offense, a little bit of a new look Kansas City Chiefs secondary post L'Jarius Sneed. Of course, there's going to be new elements to the receiving core of the Chiefs as well, with Hollywood Brown and potentially Worthy as well. Travis Kelce will still be there. I heard that Taylor Swift will be in Toronto doing some concerts right before that Bills game, so it works out perfectly for the ratings. Man, this game's always fun. It's always down to the wire. It's always back and forth. It's always both quarterbacks trying to outduel the other, and this game will probably be no different. Plus, it's going to be just great. I prefer this game in Buffalo. It's just that much better when the game is at home for the Bills. The Miami Dolphins, best game of the season. The game that you have to watch if you're a Dolphins fan or a fan of football is the 49ers game in Week 16. This game's in Miami. Now, these two faced off a couple years ago in Mike McDaniel's debut season as a head coach, and that game was in San Francisco. I believe that was actually the first game of Brock Purdy, if I'm not mistaken, or one of the first games, if I'm not mistaken, like the one that he entered because of injury. I could be wrong about that, but what makes this game so compelling is just the scheme and watching Mike McDaniel versus Kyle Shanahan going back and forth with offensive wizardry and play calling and setting up each other with different, tempo, different play calls, and how that sequencing could really evolve into a shootout. I'm also fascinated to see how McDaniel would attack the 49ers defense, how the 49ers would attempt to defend a similar offense to their own. And then, of course, you've just got so many dynamic playmakers and household names: Christian McCaffrey, Tyreek Hill, George Kittle, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk, Jalen Waddle, even OBJ will be in the mix for this one. He has familiarity playing the 49ers in big games. So this game, especially later in the season where I think the Dolphins will really be fighting for a playoff spot, this will be an awesome game between two coaches that really love each other, respect each other, two buddies, and it could be just a really fun game. Next, The New England Patriots, marquee matchup that you must watch in 2024, is the game in Week 8 versus the New York Jets. Now, this game, I couldn't really pick a Patriots game that was later in the calendar, like let's say the Bills, just because I don't know how relevant the Patriots are going to be by that time in the calendar. But these Jets games between New England and New York have been like, if you're into defense, if you're into like gritty, old school, tough, blue collar football, you're going to love this game. And that's the specific niche to watch this game. On top of that, you have the added influence as well of Aaron Rodgers. Potentially in Week 8, Drake May could be making his debut or one of his first starts in the NFL. So there's a lot of intrigue with this one. The Patriots also have kind of owned the Jets as of late. Like, they split with them last year in their worst season known to humankind in the history of the Patriots, right? Like, that was the worst season they've had since they drafted Drew Bledsoe. And they still beat the Jets in one game. So can the Jets, knock off the Patriots in New England? Of course, Gillette will be very pumped for that game. There's something about the Jets and Patriots hatred. New York, Boston, all that. So Week 8, I'll be excited for this one as a Pats fan. Great defensive football. Finishing the AFC East with the New York Jets. The Jets' best, most must-watch television game is, of course, the Buffalo Bills. You can't not pick the Buffalo Bills in Week 6 on Monday Night Football in New York, the team that Aaron Rodgers played in New York on Monday Night Football and got injured. Right? And of course, the Jets, that was a crazy scene. They ended up winning that game on a punt return. It was just, I haven't seen Jets fans that excited in so long. This game is going to have an incredible atmosphere. This is the team that everyone knows in the AFC East you have to beat. You have to get through the Bills to win this division. Jets fans know that. It's still kind of early in the season where hype is still building, and the Jets are probably going to be coming off some victories where they start off with the Niners, but then they have some really weak opponents where they can build some of that chemistry, build up some of that hype, and then it's just going to be that crescendo against Josh Allen and the Bills in New York. And I love that matchup between Josh Allen and the Jets defense. So to me, that is easily the game to watch if you're a Jets fan or any fan for that matter. Now to the AFC North, the Baltimore Ravens marquee matchup happens to be the first week of the season. I think if I'm a Ravens fan, the game I'm most looking forward to is seeing if the Ravens can really beat Patrick Mahomes and the Chiefs in the kickoff game in Kansas City Thursday Night Football. This is going to give me an indication on whether or not we are really going to be a true contender. If we cannot hang with the Chiefs, we cannot get to the Super Bowl. And it's really that simple. Now, it is in Week 1, and both teams will be not the same from what they will be in January, but at least you'll get to see that matchup. You'll get that monkey off your back, potentially, of the AFC Championship. It will never really go away, but at least you can see your coaching staff have a game plan that hopefully is different and better than the one that we saw in the AFC Championship. Of course, what is also really exciting about this is the new elements. Obviously, it's a new season. It's the kickoff of 2024 football. You're going to see Derrick Henry introduced to this rivalry and the AFC and this AFC playoff picture. You're going to see Mark Andrews back and healthy for the first time in a while, it feels like. You're going to see your new defense take shape post Mike McDonald. And of course, you're going to play Patrick Mahomes. It's the Super Bowl champ, the reigning king of football against the MVP of football. It's just an all-around great matchup. And hopefully, the Ravens can go to Kansas City and really make this a good game, just as Detroit did last year, and maybe even upset the Chiefs. But if I'm a Ravens fan, that's the game I'm most looking forward to. Next, the Cincinnati Bengals. The Bengals game that they're most looking forward to as a fan of the Bengals, which I'm kind of going to be a Bengals fan this year, thanks to Bengals fans appreciating the BLV and subscribing and Gronk spiking the like button. I could have easily went with week 2 against the Chiefs. That's an easy one, but kind of already know that. There is one that I think is more interesting from a fan perspective. It's the Ravens game on Thursday night in week 10. The world is going to be watching. It's a standalone game, and it's kind of like taking back the division. That's what this game is, right? Ravens fans, Bengals fans, they have this rivalry within the division, but there's also this rivalry about like who is better, Lamar or Burrow. And we rarely get to actually see that matchup when they're healthy. Can we see it this year? Hopefully we will see it this year. Can the Bengals like beat the Ravens and just take back the AFC North? To me, if I'm a Bengals fan, that's the game that gets me most excited, most like fired up to watch and win. So Bengals versus the Ravens, rivalry renewed. The Cleveland Browns. The Browns, they have this whole Ohio thing with the Bengals. We know this, right? So I'm going Bengals game, Thursday Night Football, week 16. This has to be one of the final Thursday Night Football games, if not the final Thursday Night Football game of the season. Browns, Bengals, Battle of Ohio in Cincinnati, although there'll be fans of both teams in attendance. The Browns defense and how they've matched up with the Bengals offense has been, the unit that has slowed down Joe Burrow the best throughout his young career. Myles Garrett, right? Denzel Ward matching up with Jamar Chase. That defense versus that offense is must-see television. And then on top of that, how are the Bengals going to slow down Nick Chubb, that running game? And then hopefully Deshaun Watson is really hitting his stride by the end of the season if you're a Browns fan, and you can really build up the hype for the playoffs. But the Browns have just played the Bengals really well. Their fans have taken pride in beating the Bengals' booties, and this will be no different. Thursday Night Football, Week 16. The Pittsburgh Steelers, final team of the AFC North here. The Ravens. It's Steelers-Ravens, Week 11. This is actually not a primetime game, which is weird, but still, Steelers-Ravens is just must watch. Doesn't matter who's playing quarterback at that point in the year for either team. Doesn't really matter who's playing on offense or defense. It's probably going to be a slugfest. It's going to be physical. It's going to be brutal. And it's going to be, just a good football game. Like, there's probably going to be some crazy turnovers, some wild sacks, strip sacks, some good physical football. Ravens, Steelers, gives me those Joe Flacco, Ben Roethlisberger 2008 vibes. Bring it back. Week 11. Can the Steelers upset Lamar once again? Moving divisions to the AFC South, the Houston Texans marquee game of the season, in my opinion, is Week 5 versus the Bills for multiple reasons. First of all, it's the first marquee opponent that they play in the calendar. Like, they play some okay teams like the Colts in Week 1, but there is no game that really stands out in the first month of the season. And as somebody that's going to be hyping up the Texans as a Super Bowl contender, I want to see them play marquee, elite quarterbacks and elite teams. And the Bills are the closest to that in the first 6 weeks of the season. On top of that, you've got the Stephon Diggs versus Buffalo storyline, which is going to be so much fun. And it's going to have great storyline, just great banter, great build-up. Texans, they play at home against Buffalo, so they're going to have that atmosphere of a team that's ready. Like, I can just feel the fan base now inviting Josh Allen into their stadium, inviting Sean McDermott into their stadium, Stephon Diggs, getting the crowd fired up for this big game in the AFC, and the Texans trying to win this game because I think it's going to be a moment for the Texans, like a big game-changing moment potentially for their franchise and their future. So that is an easy one for me. The Indianapolis Colts, it's kind of a weird choice, I think, but Week 1 against the Texans for a lot of different reasons. One, the Texans from myself and others, are being hyped as easily the best team in this division. The Colts nearly knocked off the Texans at the end of the year and nearly made the playoffs with Anthony Richardson not even playing, right? So Colts fans are excited just to see Anthony Richardson playing for the first time in forever. It's going to be week 1, right? So what does Mitchell look like at wide receiver? Is JT healthy and ready to rock? How's this new and improved defensive line look? Shane Steichen, year 2, Anthony Richardson versus CJ Stroud, the top picks of last year's draft other than Bryce Young, right? So, and there's going to be this built-in rivalry, this built-in hype. Texans fans, Colts fans, there's a long-standing rivalry there. Division game, week 1, a lot of different factors, a lot of new Texans players, a lot of new faces. So can they upset Houston in week 1? Big game there. Jacksonville Jags, this one's tough. I couldn't decide. There was 2 different games that I could have gone with. But I ultimately went with week 3 at the Bills because it's early in the season, and last year Jacksonville beat Buffalo, I believe, in London. It was kind of a shocker. No one really saw it coming. But this game is going to be in Buffalo. It's not going to be bad weather. It's going to be nice weather in Buffalo. Still September. It's the first team that Jacksonville plays this year. Again, just like the Texans, where it's like, the Bills should be pretty darn good. It's Josh Allen versus Josh Allen, which is also another storyline. But it's like, okay, how good is Jacksonville this year? Because this is one of those teams where I'm like, how good are they going to be? And I think this is the first game where I look at it and I'm saying, I'm going to be watching that game to see how Jacksonville looks. How good are they? Where can we put them in the power rankings? Should we believe in them as a playoff team? Or are they just, like a pretender? So week 3 against the Bills. The Tennessee Titans. The Titans' marquee matchup is week 4 at the Miami Dolphins, Monday Night Football. This is mostly to do with the fact that the Titans walked into Miami last year and upset the Dolphins. Nobody thought that was going to happen. I want to say they were like double-digit underdogs. Will Levis had the game of his life. D-Hop looked like he entered a time machine. And Mike Vrabel had some, last-ditch effort for Tennessee as his head coach of that team. And this is going to be a lot different because Miami is going to want revenge for last year. It's still early in the year where you're going to be able to remember that game and what they did to you last year. It's Monday Night Football. Remember, that was a big game too because that kind of, made Miami lose the division. Like, if they don't lose that game, Buffalo probably doesn't win the AFC East. So that kind of changed their entire complexion of their season. Then they had to travel to Kansas City in the wild card. They get smoked. So that kind of completely derailed Miami. So if I'm a Titans fan, I'm like, yeah, let's do it again. Let's go to Miami. It's going to be a great atmosphere in Miami, warm weather, right? It's a pretty easy travel distance type vibe for Tennessee fans if they really want to go to the game. So there could be a lot of cool stuff there. And I always really like Miami on Monday night. There's something about it. It's like the aesthetic of the stadium, the warm weather. It's just a cool vibe. So Miami, Tennessee, week 4, Monday Night Football. The final division in the AFC, we're going to kick it off with the Denver Broncos. And the marquee matchup for the Broncos, as a team that you guys know I'm not very high on, I think is week 2, the Pittsburgh Steelers at home. So it's their home opener. It's Mile High. Always a difficult place to play, Mile High, early in the season, especially because of the altitude, because players aren't in condition, a lot of different reasons for that, and because it could be very humid and warm. And on top of that, it's Russell Wilson returning to Denver to take on Sean Payton. And there's obviously bad blood there. There's obviously, they didn't see eye to eye last season. And this is a Russell Wilson revenge game for the Steelers and just for Russell Wilson in general and his legacy. But then it's also like a Sean Payton, I'm right about Russell Wilson game. So there's a lot of different factors here. It's like Bo Nix is the guy. Potentially Bo Nix be starting this game and maybe he could show up and really play well. And I would think that if there are upsets on the Broncos calendar, this would be one of them. They know the offense well. They're going to know Russell Wilson well, what he does well, what he doesn't do well. So it's going to be a fun one. Tomlin, Peyton, really underrated game for 2024. The Kansas City Chiefs, marquee game of 2024. This is always tough because they have like 10 that you could really go with. But this one is kind of off the wall. I went a little bit different here. Week 16, late in the year, where games really start to matter for the Chiefs. How good are they going to be come playoff time, right? That's kind of like later in the year, we're going to know. The Chiefs started to get it together after they lost to the Raiders last year. Remember that debacle? They play the Houston Texans on a Saturday. Standalone game, I think, or there might be another game on that day, but it's kind of like a primetime game. So they play the Houston Texans week 16. And the other reason I find this game so interesting, it's the one team that I think a lot of people, including myself, are including in that contender AFC conversation that the Chiefs don't have like a stranglehold on already. Like, I know that the Bengals have beaten the Chiefs before, but when you look at the Bills, the Ravens, right, all those teams, it's like, yeah, the Chiefs like have a history of beating those teams. But the Texans are the new kids on the block. So can the Chiefs establish dominance in that game, really show that they are big time? And I just think the matchup of like Texans offense, Chiefs defense, that'll be dynamic television. So week 16, Kansas City, Texans. Las Vegas Raiders, marquee game of 2024. It's the Chiefs. Week 13, Black Friday. I believe it's a standalone game. I love this choice, by the way. Black Friday, Raiders, right? Silver and black. I love that. But also, they hate the Chiefs. They hate the Chiefs. And you saw it, last year. I mean, that was awesome to see the Raiders beat the Chiefs up. They bullied them. They smacked them in the face. They ran them over. Antonio Pierce has been talking smack. Crosby is going to be in Mahomes' grill all day long. Christian Wilkins will be introduced to Patrick Mahomes, right? And then you've got the power, tough, running game of the Raiders and Brock Bowers, right? So Brock Bowers versus Travis Kelce, that's kind of fun. So yeah, Raiders, Chiefs, the best rivalry the Raiders have going, and it feels like they both hate each other. And that is that doesn't really exist that much in the NFL, but you have to go with that game. The Los Angeles Chargers. I'm also going with the Chiefs here. Week 4. I could have went with the Ravens, the Harbaugh versus Harbaugh game, which I brought up in my top 20 games of 2024, but I wanted to pick a different game because a lot of people are going to talk about that. I went with the Chiefs, and the reason here is week 4, early in the year, how good are the Chargers going to be? We don't really know. We think they'll be okay, but they could be better than we expect. And the one team that Harbaugh was hired to beat is the Chiefs. So, what's the game plan? What are they going to do to beat the Chiefs? And they might not be there yet. They might not have the personnel in order to do that. But I still think this is going to be a great game. Right? Probably pretty close. How will the Chargers approach the Chiefs with a new era, new regime of coaches in this game? And the Chargers usually give the Chiefs pretty good games anyways. So, week 4. Now to the NFC. The Dallas Cowboys. The Dallas Cowboys marquee game of 2024. There's plenty. Obviously, teams like the Eagles, their NFC East in general, they play the Niners again. But the team that I went with was the Texans. Week 11, Monday Night Football. The Battle of Texas. This is just a unique matchup that we don't usually see, and we don't usually see these two teams both as competent franchises playing each other at the same time. Obviously, they only play each other every 4 years, and then we don't really get to see two great quarterbacks between these two teams, two, really fun offenses, and in prime time, on top of that, it just makes this game extremely fun to watch. The New York Giants. I went with their game against the Dallas Cowboys. Week 4, Thursday Night Football. I don't think the Giants are going to be all that good, so I had to pick an early game, and it's always fun to watch them play the Cowboys. Last year, it didn't go so well, especially that first week of the season, I believe. But I think the Giants are going to be a little bit more competent on the offensive line, a little bit more competent at wide receiver. And the Giants haven't beaten the Cowboys, it feels like, in a while. So they're going to want that. Brian Daboll, Daniel Jones trying to save his job this year. The Cowboys, this is not going to be the biggest game on their schedule, but there's always a rivalry to the Giants and the Cowboys. Their fans, the Giants fans I'm speaking of, hate the Cowboys. So this game is going to have a lot of energy to it, and that is why I went with it. Next, the Philadelphia Eagles. This is going to be kind of a different take for their best game of 2024. I'm going with the game where they play Tampa in Tampa Bay week 4. Right? This is probably not the game you thought of. I'm a little disappointed they don't play the Niners because I love that bad blood between those two teams. But the Bucs, right? The two teams in the NFC that have handed L's to Jalen Hurts in the NFC playoffs, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Tom Brady and Baker Mayfield in Tampa Bay. Last year, it was the pinnacle of the Eagles being an embarrassment to football. Like, they were so bad in that playoff game. I do not recall a professional football team looking that bad in a big game setting. And this is a chance for revenge. Week 4, it's early in the year. It's in the same location. It's against the same quarterback, the same coach, a lot of the same personnel, and the Eagles have made their improvements. How much better are they really? We will find out in week 4. The Washington Commanders marquee game of 2024. At the Bengals, week 3, Monday Night Football. The Commanders obviously playing on Monday Night Football is pretty big for them, but it's the Jaden Daniels versus Joe Burrow. LSU legends go at it. Great storyline, a lot of fun. I don't expect the Commanders to be a great team, so early in the year is probably better for the hype of the game. You've got great receivers in this game, and Cliff Kingsbury, prime time. You could see some madness on offense, and just a lot of LSU. A lot of LSU action going on here with Jamar Chase, Joe Burrow, Jaden Daniels. So, yeah, this game will be a lot of fun, I think, and the Commanders will try to pull the upset. The Chicago Bears, top game of 2024, is at the Texans, week 2, Sunday Night Football. I picked this one because CJ Stroud is the quarterback that the Bears could have taken last year. Or if, they might have taken Bryce Young. But if I were picking, they would have picked CJ Stroud and they wouldn't have traded that pick. And so it's just like what could have happened, what could have been. Stroud, Caleb Williams, that comparison there. Caleb trying to be the next CJ Stroud after he had one of the best rookie seasons of all time. It's the young, fun teams of the AFC and the NFC going at it in potentially a shootout type of game with great receivers all over the field on both sides. So yeah, that game could be a lot of fun on Sunday Night Football. The Detroit Lions, best game of 2024. Week 17 at the 49ers. I think this is Monday Night Football. NFC Championship rematch late in the NFL season. I actually forgot to include this game when it came to my top 20 games of 2024. And honestly, did it need another Niners game? I don't know. But Lions fans definitely expressed that that was a game that I missed out on. And I do agree. I just forgot for whatever reason. But Week 17, Niners, Lions, it's going to be back and forth. I think probably similar to the NFC Championship in terms of a lot of points being scored because both offenses are potent. Both offenses are a lot of fun. And it'll be interesting to see how the defenses approach, some of those changes in game plan and tweaks to what they saw in the NFC Championship. Can the Niners slow down the Lions' running game? Can the Lions, come through in those big 4th down situations that they were not able to in San Francisco? This game is once again in San Francisco. And for Detroit this year, it's all about, can we beat the Niners? That's what I really think it's about. It's like that Bills-Chiefs thing from a year or 2 ago or 3 years ago, where it's like, the Bills have been building to beat this team. The Lions know that the other team that they must beat in the NFC to get to the Super Bowl is San Francisco. And so we're going to see the first glimpse of that, at least, in Week 17, which is very late in the season. It could even determine the number 1 seed in the NFC. The Green Bay Packers marquee game of 2024 is at the Lions Thursday Night Football Week 14, which I think I made a mistake on the date in my other video. Not sure why. Sometimes the leaks get the dates wrong, but Packers at the Lions Thursday Night Football. Marquee game, standalone game, prime time. Jordan Love, on the road. They beat the Lions last year on Thanksgiving, so this is the scene of the crime, obviously. Lions want to get revenge for that, but this could be for the division. This could be for the NFC North. I think both these teams are going to be very legit, high-scoring, high-flying teams, and I'm very intrigued to see how the maturity of the Packers takes place. I think the Lions have already matured. They're already there, and they're kind of more of a proven entity. The Packers are more that team that's on the rise and still has that hint of potential that might not be seen yet. So, really intriguing game at the Lions, Week 14 for the NFC North. The Minnesota Vikings, best game of 2024, is versus the Falcons, Week 14 in their building. Regardless of how their season is going, I think J.J. McCarthy could be playing at this point in Week 14, and it'll be the past Kirk Cousins, hopefully still healthy, of the Falcons taking on the Vikings' future J.J. McCarthy in Minnesota. Nothing else has to really be said, but there is some pretty big intrigue between the coaching staff there. Kevin O'Connell, Raheem Morris, LA Ram guys facing off against each other. One offensive guy, one defensive guy, J.J. McCarthy, Kirk Cousins. That clash being had in a big game later in the season. Who knows? The Vikings could still be in play for the playoffs, and the Atlanta Falcons, I think, very much are going to be in play for the playoffs in the NFC South, a weaker division. So can the Vikings upset them and send Kirk Cousins back golfing and packing and getting his wife to pick out his outfits at home? The Atlanta Falcons' best game of 2024, the Kansas City Chiefs, Week 3. Yup, Week 3, Atlanta gets a Sunday night football game. I know Ultra's excited. I'm sure the Wave God is excited. Man, we get to see how good these Falcons really can be, because they're going to take on the best team in football, the Super Bowl champs, back-to-back. Can the Falcons, at home, rise up and upset the Chiefs? That's what it's all about, man. We're going to find out how good the Falcons are going to be this year in that game. The Carolina Panthers, best game of 2024. There's not many that you can really choose, but the Carolina Panthers' best game, I'd go with the Chicago Bears in Chicago. Week 5. Most interesting from a storyline standpoint, right? Last year, it was all about beating the Texans, and they did that. This year, it's all about beating Caleb Williams, because the Panthers could have had Caleb Williams, remember? So if they want to beat one team, it would be that team in their building early in this season. Caleb Williams, Bryce Young, back-to-back first overall picks. Can Bryce Young come out on top? Because the Panthers, their fan base, desperately needs it. The New Orleans Saints, their best game of 2024. This one was weird. I wanted to go with one of the Bucs games, but they're like late in the year. It's kind of weird. I went with the Cowboys, Week 2. There's something about Derek Carr taking on the Cowboys. I think it's that Thanksgiving game where he had like one of the best games I've ever seen him play a few years ago. But I could really see a great game here. I think this is more of an entertainment thing. I think Marshawn Lattimore versus CeeDee Lamb early in the season is going to be epic. Chris Olave versus Trayvon Diggs. Right? Micah Parsons taking on Ryan Ramczyk and Fuaga. Alvin Kamara and Zeke, the two kind of almost at this point legendary running backs in their own right. And a team in the Saints that's trying to make a push for the South, trying to make a push to make the playoffs in the NFC. And the Cowboys were a NFC playoff team last year. So can they beat this team in a big game for New Orleans that might not be seen as a big game for Dallas? The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, best game of 2024 that you have to watch. Thursday Night Football at the Atlanta Falcons. That is week number 5. This is a big game because the Bucs have owned this division as of late. Tom Brady, doesn't matter. We got Baker Mayfield. They still win the division. The Atlanta Falcons are the team that thinks they're going to win the division. They think they're going to be so good that they didn't even need to use their first-round pick on a starter. They chose Michael Penix. They're throwing that in the face of Tampa. So can Baker Mayfield and his boys walk into Atlanta and outduel Kirk Cousins in a big primetime game that everyone will be watching? That's going to be a lot of fun. I could see that being like 31-24, 30-27 type game. The Arizona Cardinals finishing off with the NFC West. The Cardinals' best game of 2024. I'm going with the Rams week 2 because I could see this being a game where the Cardinals are trying to get back on track when it comes to playing the Rams. They have not had a lot of success playing the Rams lately or ever, right? And now you get Marvin Harrison Jr. You got Trey McBride. There's a lot of playmakers in this game. Matthew Stafford, Kyler Murray. I could see this as a high-flying duel. LA, Arizona. I like that game. The LA Rams, best game of 2024. The Detroit Lions, week 1, Sunday Night Football. I know, I could have went with like the Niners, something like that. But the Lions, the team they lost to in the playoffs, revenge for that loss in the same game. Matthew Stafford, once again, revenge game against the fans that love him, but also now have moved on to Jared Goff. Stafford gets one more chance to prove that he really is that dude. Stafford, Goff having that also chip on his shoulder with Sean McVay. McVay kind of saying, Goff, you weren't good enough for us. And the Rams, the Lions, 2 marquee NFC teams. Great coaching, great play calling. This will be a fun game. The San Francisco 49ers, I think you could guess this one. Marquee game of 2024, the Kansas City Chiefs, week 7 in San Francisco. On Fox, Tom Brady on the call. This could be a Brock Purdy legacy game. Can Brock Purdy beat Mahomes with Mahomes coming into his house? Can he do it? Can he make the plays at the end of the game that maybe he didn't in the Super Bowl? Not saying that he was the reason they lost, but just saying, can he take that another step to being the guy, the dude that the Niners need to win the Super Bowl? And if the Niners are able to beat the Chiefs, no matter how good the Chiefs are this year, that would signal a lot for me in terms of what they're going to be in the playoffs, what they're going to be able to do for the entire season. If they lose to the Chiefs, it'll almost feel like, are we ever really going to be able to win this thing? Because we've got to beat this team. They've lost to him twice in the Super Bowl. Can Shanahan kind of get a little bit of that monkey off his back in terms of beating Andy Reid and the Chiefs? Can Nick Bosa finally get to Patrick Mahomes? It was overtime, man. It was a great Super Bowl. It will be a great game. And the 49ers faithful will be lit. Can't wait. And the Seattle Seahawks, best game of 2024. I might actually try to attend. Pretty close to Seattle. Seattle Seahawks versus the 49ers. Thursday Night Football, week 6. Why this is the marquee game? The Hawks got swept by the Niners. I think they've lost 5 games in a row against the Niners, if I'm not mistaken. Pete Carroll era is over. Big reason they hired Mike Macdonald, what Mike Macdonald did to the Niners on Monday Night Football in front of the world with the Ravens. Will Mike Macdonald be the difference in finally knocking off Kyle Shanahan and the Niners? That, to me, is why the Seahawks and Niners is that marquee game on Thursday night that you have to watch. 2 of the best at it. Offensively, defensively calling plays with their schemes. And Seattle with a new reinvigorated attitude towards this rivalry. A rivalry that has not been the same the last couple of years. That is the must-watch game of all 32 NFL teams this year in 2024. Hopefully you enjoyed this video. If you did, spike the like button, show your love, and subscribe for more NFL content just like this. And remember, 100 likes, I'll release my favorite game, the best game to watch each week of the NFL season so you can be prepared every week of the NFL season. Which game should I be watching? What did Mitch say? 100 likes, man. And my prediction for all the games and all the teams coming out soon, guys.